All right, so Chin State, Myanmar. It's been in the news and for good reason.
Yeah, since that coup in 2021, it's become like a major flashpoint.
Right, but it's not as simple as just, military versus the
You
resistance.
definitely not.
So we're going to be, really digging into these reports we found, taking you through the different groups, even how India's involved.
It's fascinating.
By the end, you'll know way more about what's actually going on over there.
It's like Chin State has become this, well, almost a microcosm of everything happening in Myanmar. You see the resistance, you see these long-standing ethnic tensions, even countries like India getting involved, all in this one place.
Sounds messy.
Mm.
To really get this, can we rewind a bit? I mean, we all know about the 2021 coup, but what's happened since then to bring us to this point?
Simply put, Myanmar's been in chaos. Widespread resistance. When the Shinta took over, there were huge protests, armed resistance, especially these local defense forces popping up everywhere.
And Chin State fits into the house.
Well, they've always been kind of marginalized by the government historically.
Right.
So when the coup happened, it became a key battleground. BUT, the resistance there, not so unified.
Okay.
This is where it gets interesting. Shifting alliances, internal divisions. Like a political thriller, you know?
Okay, so break it down for me. You said shifting alliances. Who are the big players here?
Two main coalitions, the Chinland Council and the Chin Brotherhood Alliance, each with its own goals, its own allies, and its own issues.
So it's not just about fighting the junta, it's about who gets to decide what Chin State becomes, huh?
Exactly. And they each have a different approach. The Chinland Council, led mainly by the Chin National Front, CNF, and their armed wing, the Chin National Army, or CNA, they've been around fighting for rights and autonomy since the late 80s. After the coup, they really started trying to build up governing structures for a future independent Chinland.
So they're like resisting A&D, preparing for their own vision of the future. Bold.
Yeah. And then you've got the Chin Brotherhood Alliance. They're newer, formed just last year, specifically in opposition to the council. More decentralized, groups like the Chin National Organization, or CNO, the Zumi Federal Union, ZFU, several others. Their main thing is fighting the junta.
So it's that classic debate. Secure the future now or win the war first. No wonder there's tension.
It's even deeper than just timelines, though. It gets into who represents the Chin people, historical power dynamics. The Brotherhood accuses the council, especially the CNF, of trying to dominate Chin politics, not being inclusive enough.
A power struggle on top of a power struggle. Are there, specific examples of this boiling over?
Oh, yeah. There have actually been armed clashes between groups aligned with each side. One instance, the CDF Mara, they're with the Chinland Council.
Gotcha.
And then the Maraland Defense Force, or MDF, they're part of the Brotherhood.
Yeah.
Earlier this year, they accused each other of drone attacks. Can you believe that?
Drones. Wow.
Right. The MDF says the Chinland Council was behind it, even claimed they got funding and weapons from the National Unity Government for it.
The plot thickens.
The CNF, of course, denies it completely. But yeah, it shows how deep this mistrust runs.
Yeah. Accusations of drone warfare between resistance groups that's intense. Hard to imagine them finding common ground when things are that bad.
And it gets even more complicated when you factor in outside forces. India is starting to take a real interest in what's going on in Chin State as a whole other layer to an already volatile situation, you know.
India getting involved. That just changes the whole game, doesn't it? Especially with their history in the region. But before we get to that, I'm still trying to wrap my head around these coalitions. You mentioned the CNF. They're seen as the dominant group within the Chin resistance. How'd that happen?
Well, the CNF's been around. They've been fighting for Chin rights for decades, literally. They were really important in establishing Chin National Day, you know.
I don't think I do, actually.
Oh, right. It marks that day back in 1948, when Chin leaders first formally asked for autonomy from the Burmese government right after independence.
Ah, okay. So a long history of advocating for Chin interests.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But then how does that turn into groups like the CNO, the ZFU, accusing them of being too dominant?
It's more nuanced than just, shared struggle. It's the internal dynamics within Chin society, too, you know? The Chin population isn't some, monolithic group. There are over 50, I think 53 different subgroups, each with their own language, traditions. Some even have, historical rivalries going way back.
Wow, okay.
And so some of these groups, especially down south, they feel like the CNF, which is mostly the Northern Chinkukia group, doesn't really represent them.
So it's about more than just political control. It's making sure all the different voices in Chin State are actually heard.
Exactly. The ZFU, for example, they've always wanted a federal system. give a lot of autonomy to individual Chin communities. They don't trust any centralized authority that much, even if it's other
They've
Chin.
been burned before, basically.
Right? It's like, been there, done that, not doing it again. So even with good intentions, creating the Chinland Council might have made some of those fears worse, unintentionally.
Ah, I see. So then that brings us back to the Chin Brotherhood Alliance, allying with the Iraqi army, the AA. And the council sees them as outsiders, but the Brotherhood, especially the MDF, they see a useful ally.
Right. The AA has decades of experience fighting the Tatmadaw, so they've got the military support, the training that the Brotherhood really needs.
So it's almost like, to the Brotherhood, survival trumps these internal politics, for now.
Kind of, yeah. Their stance seems to be, we can figure out the power stuff later. First, we got to deal with the junta, so they're focused on the fighting.
Which is probably why that fighting in Matupi Township is so important, huh? You said it was strategic. Tell me more about that.
So Matupi, it's like the central junction connecting North and South Chin State, but it's also a gateway into Rakhine State, which is where the AA mainly operates.
That's whoever controls it.
Has the advantage, troop movements, resources, the whole deal.
So the Brotherhood and the AA winning that battle recently, taking the junta's battalion headquarters, that's a big deal.
Huge. Not only is it a big military win for the Brotherhood, but now they've got a stronger presence there, and it messes up the junta's supply lines.
Which loops us back to India. Now that the AA, allied with the Brotherhood, controls key spots like Paletwa. How's India taking it? This is where their Kaladan project runs, right?
Right through it.
Yeah.
Super important to them. And yeah, it puts India in a tight spot.
How so?
Officially, they're trying to stay neutral, keep talking to everybody, including the junta, but on the ground, it's way more complicated than that.
For example, what kind of complicated are we talking?
Well, there are reports, pretty credible ones, of Indian officials meeting with the AA, even some of their top leaders.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah. So now people are wondering if India is trying to go around the junta and make sure their Kaladan project is safe by dealing directly with the AA, since they control the territory now.
Hedging their bets, huh? Publicly neutral, but making friends with whoever might win this thing. What does that do for the Chinland Council?
It's not good. The council does not like seeing India cozying up to the AA, especially when it comes to the Kaladan project. They see it as India basically saying, yeah, the AA being in Chin State is fine, which of course undermines the council's own claim of being the legitimate authority there.
So India, probably without meaning to, is getting dragged deeper into this conflict, making a bad situation even more.
Well, volatile is putting it lightly, isn't it? So India's stuck, huh? Trying to protect what matters to them without, like, openly choosing sides. What does this mean for their Kaladan project, though? It was already kind of stalled, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was facing delays, logistical issues.
Yeah.
Typical big infrastructure project stuff, right? But now you add in all this political turmoil.
And it's anyone's guess if or when it gets finished.
Pretty much.
And for the Chinland Council, how are they dealing with India maybe becoming a bigger player? Carefully. They can't make India mad. They're too powerful in the region. But they also can't look like they're okay with the AA being in Chin State.
Talk about stuck between a rock and a hard place. This whole thing could blow up even more, couldn't it? Is anyone trying to, I don't know, calm things down, find some kind of resolution?
There have been some attempts at dialogue, small-scale stuff, mostly organized by, like, civil society groups, religious leaders, people like that, within Chin State itself.
Okay.
But nothing much has come of it so far.
Is there just too much bad blood for them to get along? I mean, you said earlier both coalitions basically want what's best for the Chin people, right?
Yeah, on paper, sure. Their goals seem similar enough. But there's this deep mistrust, years of rivalry, sometimes even armed conflict, you know? Each side thinks the other is the problem, the thing stopping them from achieving their vision.
And don't forget the junta, just like lurking in the background this whole time. We haven't even talked about them much. Are they laying low in Chin State, or are they cooking up something?
They haven't been doing much militarily there lately, true. Doesn't mean they're out of it, though. Remember that census we mentioned way back at the beginning? That's their move right now, and it could make things even worse.
Oh, right, the census. Seemed like a small detail, but now I'm remembering it's a huge deal. Remind me again why it's causing such a fuss.
To the junta, it's about control, showing they're in charge, that they're legitimate. They say it's just, you know, routine administration stuff.
Right.
But a lot of people in Chin State think it's how the junta is going to hold on to power, rig elections, redraw boundaries, all that.
It's like a big screw you to the Chin people. Like, their autonomy means nothing to the junta.
Exactly. And to add insult to injury, they're doing it without talking to the locals, being transparent about it at all. So yeah, a lot of mistrust there. People worried the data will be used against them somehow.
So we're left with this very uncertain, very tense situation. Internal divisions, pressure from outside, and a junta that's not going anywhere. If our listeners take away one thing from all of this, what should it be?
That conflict is rarely simple, Black and white, good guys, bad guys. There's so many layers to this. History, power struggles, personal vendettas even. All that factors into why people do what they do.
It's a reminder to look beyond the headlines, right? To really try to understand what's going on.
Absolutely. That's how we start to see the real challenges. A&D, the potential solutions. If those even exist yet, who knows?
Well, this deep dive has been a lot, in a good way. We went from knowing just the basics about Chin State to, well, all this.
And we've barely scratched the surface. Things change every day over there.
Which is why we got to stay informed. Keep asking those tough questions.
Couldn't agree more. The more we know, the better equipped we are to, actually make a difference. Maybe.
Thank you, as always, for guiding us through this.
Happy to do it.
And to everyone listening, we'll keep following what happens in Chin State. You should too. Until next time, stay curious out there.